Hey, I didn't get I ran out of memory on the last video, and this is the last one for the day, so I'm going to finish up where I left off on the last one. I wrote some things down because this relates to artificial intelligence programming and what's called inverted programming. Now, I know I've covered what it means to be inverted, okay, which essentially means that this is sort of, again, a question. Whose memory are we running off of? If I was to ask each one of you that are out there that watch this video, whose memory are you running on? Are you running on your own memory? Or are you running on something else that programs something into your memory upon which the future can be proven past to the memory that elicits a future behavioral algorithm? Which means, whose memory are you running on? Your own or somebody else's? Okay? Now, I realize the importance of this, particularly in my childhood, that when you already come from, if you will, a higher state of density consciousness, which means you're autonomous, because the speed at which you're experiencing who you are, which is your core frequency identity, which means the spin rate and rotation rate of the particles in your living spirit and your state of consciousness is running so fast that you naturally just know you are already a free unit, which means you're not going to allow your consciousness to be held captive by something that's running at a lower rate of speed, which means you're already free to be what it is that you are, because you don't live in any fear of anything in the cosmos, because you are what love is in living spirit. That's called self-reference, which is gnosis, which is knowledge. So you know that about yourself. So you know you don't allow yourself to be held captive by another unit of consciousness, because where we come from doesn't do that. We don't hold other units of consciousness captive to who we are, because otherwise that does what? Slows us down. And you want to know how that works? It's called an attachment. We don't attach ourselves to other units of consciousness that represent density. We don't do things to increase our mass density, which happens by trying to hold another unit of energy captive. That's the genius of the cosmos. It doesn't want us to hold other units of energy captive, which is why free will is universal. So when you are trying to hold another unit of consciousness captive to your state of consciousness, which is your state of mind, okay, that's a parasite. Okay, that is in and of itself a parasite. That's a hive mind wanting to assimilate and hold captive another unit of consciousness to its hive mind. Okay, so when I realized that was, how do I put it? Well, I began counting how many units there were in each classroom that I was in, starting in elementary school, and then began realizing that there were more of them in high school. So then you began to realize that the exponential function of more parasites that were being held captive to artificial intelligence hive mind programming, the exponential function kicked that into high gear, which sort of is translated through what happened in the election. Now, anybody that's been following the truth, which means who knows who Joe Biden is, knows that he is a vampire, he's a criminal, he's a demon. Okay? So to give you an idea of how many beings are programmed through parasitic artificial intelligence that represents the parasites represented by the blue states that voted for him, aren't even aware enough to know that the vote that they cast was cast for a demon. That's how bad it is. So you can imagine how President Trump and Q must be feeling, knowing that they have a guy that ran for president that was allowed to run in the election, knowing full well that Biden is a demon. We all know that he's a demon. So on one level, you'd have to ask yourself, why would they even hold an election in knowing that? Well, I'll tell you one thing that we can measure, because I just said it. Everybody that cast a vote for Biden would be representative of what an insurgent is, an enemy combatant, because it means that they're giving consent to be ruled over by somebody who's willing to destroy this country. Which means everybody that voted by Biden would need to be removed, wouldn't they? Because they've been programmed to be a parasite. Put that in the hopper. So here's something about inverted programming. So that's why it's going to be interesting how all the people that voted for President Trump who are awake, who understand when he meant draining the swamp, we're talking about draining demons, lizard family Draco reptilians, and the Anunnaki hybrids, and those that feed on other people's energy, and trying to restore the peace, the balance, and the harmony to this planet. That was the purpose of President Trump being elected into office. So for us to think that on a planetary and a galactic scale, that the parasites that are controlled through artificial intelligence and all the big telecommunication systems that represent weaponized AI are going to be allowed to continue to do what they've been doing, then obviously those people are not sane and have not been following what's been happening on the planet, because the great living spirit of Mother Earth who's in this planet is purging herself of all the parasites. That's what's happening on a larger scale. So in my mind, it doesn't matter about the election outcome, because I realize that there are much larger spiritual players in this game where decisions have already been made about the outcome. Which is why the Star Trek navigators, as I call them, like Lori Ladd, Karen Ann Luke MacDonald, Patty Broussard, myself, and others, who talk about the importance of getting the energy up, spinning your Merkaba at a faster rate, cleansing the body, cleansing the colon, getting your energy up because of where we're headed. Okay? Which is a shift in consciousness to the higher realms. Okay? That's where we're autonomous. That's what love is. Love allows us to be free because we don't hold other units of consciousness captive. We don't have rulers over us. So here's an example of how inverted programming works to record a lower frequency vibration experience that are presented. So an example would be the word warrior. Okay? So even sometimes when the word light worker and light warrior came into the lexicon of common language parlance for over the last 15 years, I've never used either one of those words to describe what it is that I am. I've always simply thought of myself as both a student and a teacher. Okay? I don't even like the word teacher because, again, that results in what I call inverted programming. Because most children, generation after generation after generation after generation, okay, where it was put into their memory through experience that a teacher represents what? An authority figure. Okay? Like a parent is an authority figure. Okay? Which means somebody who is telling you what to do. So the telling you what to do is a rule-based function. Love is freedom. Mothers teach through love, not through fear of authority, of a bad consequence. We don't program fear-based algorithms as a behavioral way in which to elicit behavior. When you are what love is in living spirit, you are living the rule book of Source, which means we are naturally broadcasting and communicating beautiful energy that is beautiful to experience. Thus, we do no harm. Love does no harm. And love is the absence of fear. So we don't fear others, because we don't fear ourselves in the bidirectional mirror. The light we see ahead of us is the light we are broadcasting to see the road ahead of us, because the spin rate and rotation rate of our Merkaba is spinning so fast, we can see the future result of our behavior. And since we don't want to experience something that is less than what love is, we're not going to do something to drain our own battery, are we? So this is sort of how it works when you think about how programming works. For example, the mean of perception. So when I think of the word warrior, for example, warrior, if I took a survey of, say, 100 million people, the perception of what they have of that word can be measured on the electromagnetic spectrum. It's my educated guess that if you surveyed 100 million people what that is, the chances are they think of a warrior as more of a lower frequency as an aggressor. Okay? A warrior type. Ooh, going to war. Warrior. Warrior. So it has sort of a negative connotation rather than a positive connotation, the way that if I represented a flower as what love is presentation. So I think not of the word as a light warrior, even though we're in a spiritual war, in the sense that it's a spiritual battlefield, which is an energy battlefield between lower and higher frequency. Those that are feeding on the higher frequency speed of our light because they can't generate any of their own. That's the nature of the battle, as to who wins. That's the blue. The blue can't generate any love for themselves because they perceive the universe that they live in through needing more energy in order to sustain themselves, which is translated as what? The particle. Money. Material form. Mass density. I need the mass density in order for me to continue to believe that that's what I need in order to go on. Rather than knowing that they are what love is in living spirit, which is in that light, which is forever. That's how the programming works. It's inverted. And when we talk about inverted, it means that they believe what is true for them is actually false in the way that physics work. The universe doesn't work that way. So they've been programmed to believe what is not true, and as a result of that, they are draining their own battery because of their own belief system. And that belief system was programmed into their memory. So now that they're running off a memory program that results in draining their own battery, then obviously they can't move through the higher dimensions because they didn't learn how to become a powerful magnet and grow their soul spiritual body of light. So instead of growing their light, they're draining their light and don't realize how they're doing that to themselves. That's inverted programming. That's what AI parasitic programming does. So the mean of perception vibration programming on our event DNA ascension timeline that is inverted. The difference between the difference between the pulsed electromagnetic frequency transmitter and the signal, in this case would be the word, and the receiver that is inverted. What do you bet if I sent a question out to 10 million receivers, I'm putting the word warrior to them to write a one-sentence description what their perception is of the word. So this is where you get back to perception vibration. Whose memory are we running on? The memory of what they presented to us that we thus recorded into our memory, and we run off that memory of what was presented to us, which is why I don't watch their TV, I don't read their newspapers, I don't read their publications, and I spend as much time in nature as I possibly can, because that's the real living cosmos that living spirit wants to live in, because that's where all the living energy is. That's how you know the difference between those that have been programmed and those that are living energy that live in living trees. Now that's as basic as it gets. So this is what happens. This is how the programming works. And unfortunately, when they came in here and they were raised in their family, they weren't told by their parents, for example, guess what? You're in a parasitic artificial intelligence programming field. So therefore, as soon as you were old enough, I'm going to teach you all the skills that you need in order to be able to grow a garden and live out in nature and begin to have a spiritual communication relationship with the living spirit of Mother Earth and everything that is living in spirit in nature. Which means you're learning how to live in peace, harmony, and balance with the natural world. Because it is the natural world that is the provider of the living spirit of the water, the living spirit in the air, the living spirit in fire, and the living spirit in the earth. When you are in peace, harmony, and balance with the alchemy of those elements on this planet, then we all thrive with her. Children did not learn how to do that with each other through them. Children went to their schools to be programmed to be parasites, instead of learning through the teachers and the healers and the peacekeepers here how to live in peace, love, and harmony with nature. So instead, they learned how to pervert it and destroy the very natural world that is providing for us the living energies that allow us to thrive. And unfortunately, when you collect all the data in nature, you begin to realize how contaminated it became, which obviously means you can understand why she took the gloves off and decided to say, that's enough. So for me, she's always the last say, because it is her living spirit that I thrive on with my living spirit when I'm with her, because this is her classroom. Okay? Which is why I've always described and mentioned to everybody the importance that I impart with me of maintaining that relationship with her, and the importance of maintaining the spin of your Merkaba and cleansing the impurities that are in our body as a result of the relationship that we've had with parasitic artificial intelligence. It's that simple. Anyway, I'm done for the day. Enjoy the day. The sun is up. Be good to yourselves.